Please welcome our superhero sponsor, Datahaven365, and their super team, Mitch Brown, Sales Director, and Brad Bimson, President. Today, they will be bringing order to chaos in their session, OMG Where is the File? Redefine your paperless experience with Datahaven365. Stick around after for a live Q&A with some real-life heroes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Brad Bimson, and I'm the president of Torrential Data Solutions, the developer of the Datahaven365 solutions. We want to thank DynamicsCon for giving us the opportunity to participate in this event and look forward to participating in more events in the future. Joining me today on screen is Mitch Brown, our Director of Sales. Mitch has been selling document management solutions to the Dynamics market for more than 15 years. Is going to give you what we hope is one of the more compelling demos you see this year at DynamicsCon. So feel free to contact either one of us if you would like to learn more about any of the Datahaven365 solutions. And I do want to mention that you will have a chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Enter any kind of question that you want to have answered, and we should be able to reply live while we go through the demo.
We interrupt this boring introduction to take you live to the latest crisis brewing over at Wayne Manor.
Holy pandemic, Batman! This sudden shift to remote work has everyone in their home offices running in circles trying to find the documents and emails they need to do their job. The people of Gotham are getting really frustrated.
I'm glad you said something to me, Robin. I didn't realize things had become so crazy in Gotham. But don't panic. I know what this is. It's OMG WTF syndrome, and I know the cure for it.
Datahaven365 can protect all of us against OMG WTF syndrome by standardizing and automating how everyone names, files, and links documents, emails, and other unstructured content related to complex business transactions. Datahaven365 leverages a familiar folder structure that has been embedded throughout the Microsoft Business Applications ecosystem, including Finance and Operations, Customer Engagement, Business Central, Power Apps, Outlook, and Teams. So without even thinking about it, everyone will be able to name and file content the same way every time across every department in every company in Gotham. The result? Workers of Gotham will spend far less time naming, filing, and organizing unstructured content, and practically no time finding it, because the Datahaven virtual folder structures magically display the content everywhere it's relevant.
Holy magic folder structures, Batman! How can a simple folder structure accomplish all of this?
Well, Robin, it's not the simple folder structure it appears to be. The virtual folder structure in Datahaven365 is powerful, patented technology. Let's review a common dropship scenario as an example. From any ERP record, such as the sales order you see here, the Datahaven virtual folder structure enables users to see any document, email, or other electronic file related to the sales order, including the customer's purchase order, the order confirmation we emailed to the customer, the items listed on the order, and any of their supporting documents. From the ERP system, users can even see a sales quote created in the CRM system and navigate directly to that sales quote record.
Holy feeling left out, Batman! I wish I could use Datahaven365, but I don't use our CRM or our ERP system.
Come on, Robin. I told you not to panic. Anyone in our organization can use Datahaven365 now that the pandemic has everyone using Microsoft Teams. We can embed Datahaven365 in any of our Teams channels, so that everyone has access to these same documents.
Holy folders everywhere, Batman! So no matter what applications our people use, they can use Datahaven365 to find and work with any document, email, or other electronic file from the application they prefer?
That's exactly right, Robin. And I've barely scratched the surface of what Datahaven365 can do. together with more than 450 embedded document-centric features, including OCR automated data extraction and workflow routing and approval. Datahaven365 and its patented virtual folder structures offer solutions that range from simple document and email archiving for inventory, manufacturing, and warehousing, just to name a few, to sophisticated document management such as sales order automation and AP automation with 3-way and even 4-way matching.
Holy educational content, Batman! How can I learn more about Datahaven 365?
I'm glad you asked, Robin. The first thing you can do is stay tuned in for the next 30 minutes or so, because you're going to see a detailed demo of Datahaven from Mitch Brown, the company's director of sales. Mitch is going to show everyone how Datahaven 365 can drive value in multiple departments, such as sales, purchasing, and payables, and how Datahaven helps organizations reduce human error and manual tasks, eliminate duplicate payments, maximize early payment discounts, and automate document approvals.
Well, it looks like the crisis at Wayne Manor has been resolved, so we can now rejoin our broadcast, already in progress.
Brad, we've just seen how Datahaven has redefined the paperless experience for Business Central users, but I know a lot of people on the call want to see how we integrate with Dynamics F&O. So I've pulled up a sales order screen or a sales order within F&O, as you can see on your screen. And the first thing an F&O user will notice is on the right-hand side, we have the Datahaven folder structure. This is patented technology that allows users to see information that relates to this sales order, whether it be a customer PO, order confirmation document, anything that relates to this sales order within the system. But with Datahaven, we also offer a technology called deep data linking. Now, you might be wondering what I mean by that. Well, with data...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just so people know, sometimes this screen real estate is pretty valuable and people need to have the whole horizontal width. Can you just show us how that screen can go away and quickly toggle back?
Certainly. So whenever a user doesn't want to access the supporting files, all they have to do is collapse the window, and that will give them access to the full F&O screen. Whenever they need to resume viewing documents, all they do is click on the Datahaven tab, and it will reopen the window. Now, Brad, as I was mentioning before, with Datahaven, in addition to our patented virtual folders, the system offers what I like to refer to as deep data linking. And what that enables is for users to see not only information that relates specifically to the sales order, but also anything that relates to this sales order. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, I've drilled down and I'm viewing documents that are stored against the item within F&O from the sales order screen simply because that item is on this sales order. This can be incredibly powerful if users need to review design documents or spec sheets. They're able to do that directly from the sales order or purchase order within F&O.
You mentioned the real world, though, a lot of salespeople aren't allowed access to the ERP system. What does Datahaven allow for that?
Well, Brad, I'm glad you asked, because we've recently enhanced our integration between F&O and CRM. So if I go down, you can see that within the Datahaven folder structure, I have the ability to view not only documents that have been stored against the CRM account, but also the relevant purchase or sales quote that was generated within CRM. Now, I'm going to navigate over to CRM by simply clicking the Launched Link Record option. And that will take the user directly from F&O into the appropriate quote. I don't have to do any searching. Launching the linked record is going to take me directly into the sales quote within CRM. And as you can see here, the salesperson now has access to not only the documents that were stored in CRM, but also the documents that were stored against the sales order within F&O. Now, you might be asking, how do we get documents into the system? Well, for starters, if I go under the Datahaven folder structure, we can see that the quote we sent the customer has already been attached. But let's say they sent over a questionnaire that they filled out with some specifications that they needed or requirements they had for the laptops they want to purchase. In order to archive that, I simply take the email, drag it onto the Datahaven window. The system's going to prompt the user to select the type of document that they're attaching. In this case, it's quote support. And we're going to use that subtype to automatically rename the file to ensure things are stored in a consistent manner. Now, a little bit later on, the customer sends over their PO, and we want to attach that. And as a salesperson, I'm able to attach that to the sales order within F&O directly from the CRM screen. So for example, all I do is I take this email, once again, drag it onto the Datahaven window, select the type of file. In this case, it's customer PO. And the system will update the folder structure to show that email that we just dragged and dropped. It's been stored against the F&O record, and I was able to do that directly from CRM. And Brad, one thing I forgot to highlight is, once again, the file naming. As you can see here, we've renamed the file to say customer PO, but if I go back into Outlook, you can see none of that information was included either in the subject line or the attached file. This is going to ensure that things are stored in a consistent manner so that users can find it for years to come. Now, in addition to being able to attach that email to the F&O record, the salesperson can also route this email into an approval workflow. So I can click on the route option, and we're going to go down and select the sales order approval process. And that's going to actually route that email into a sales order approval workflow. But I'm going to touch on workflows a little bit more in just a few moments. Now let's navigate back over to the Dynamics F&O record. So we're going to launch the sales order from CRM. And when I go into the sales order, and let's just open the full sales order up. When the folder structure updates, we can actually look at the relevant quote in CRM. I can see the quote that was sent to the customer. I also have access to the support document. And most importantly, we've got that customer PO that we attached to the sales order from CRM.
Mitch, that's really powerful that the sales staff has direct access through the folder structure into the ERP system. But I'm just thinking again, for people who may not be using any kind of Dynamics product, what does Datahaven offer for that?
Well, Brad, Datahaven has a variety of search tools. The first of which is available from, once again, the Datahaven folder structure. You can see I've got a search or a search pop-out. I'm going to actually do the pop-up. And this is going to take me to a portal where users would be able to key in information such as the sales order number. When I enter that, you can see the customer PO that we just attached is now visible. And on the right-hand side, users have access to the folder structure once again. So I can drill down and see information that relates to not only the sales order itself, but documents that were attached to the sales quote in CRM, giving me a complete picture of all of the documents that pertain to this record. But we've recently taken things a step further beyond the portal. We know with the pandemic, a lot of users are utilizing Teams. And Datahaven now integrates with Teams to give a Teams user the ability to access the supporting files both in CRM and F&O. For example, AdventureWorks is one of our largest customers. So we want to make sure that we're keeping on top of all projects and cases that may come up for this account. Within Teams, we've actually created a view where we can see the complete folder structure. So I can see any quote cases. I have access to accounts documents. So if I want to look at credit applications, or review the contract with this particular customer, I can do that directly from Teams. I also have the ability where I can view all supporting documentation to the sales order that we're working on. Users also have the ability where they can actually, once again, launch the link record to navigate directly to that sales order from Teams, which is incredibly powerful.
So, Mitch, obviously this is not your father's Windows folder structures. We're all familiar with kind of how that collapses around your ears if you try to use it, but how does Datahaven make sure that its folder structures stay up to date?
Well, Brad, we actually have the ability to, or I should say with Datahaven, the system is constantly aware of what's going on within Dynamics F&O. For example, if I want to go ahead and create a purchase order within F&O for these laptops, because we're going to do a drop shipment, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Once the purchase order has been created within the system, you'll notice that the Datahaven folder structure has automatically updated to include a link to the related purchase order. This was done with no additional input from the user. The system did it automatically. So you don't need to rely on users creating folders, naming them accordingly, and setting them up. Datahaven's going to take care of that for them. Now that we've got the related purchase order in the system, let's launch that record so we can see what the folder structure looks like over there. Now, as I'm going through the next few screens, you'll notice the folder structure is constantly changing, and that's because it's contextually aware, meaning that it knows what folders need to be viewed on a particular record. So since we're on a purchase order, the folder structure needs to be a little bit different from what we've seen on the sales order side. So within the purchase order, we do have access to all supporting files that have been attached to the sales order. This can be a great tool for AR and AP to be able to work together. But of course, we have an incredibly robust security tool to ensure that only the appropriate users have access to supporting files. Now that we've created the purchase order in the system, I'm going to go ahead and confirm it so we can receive against this order. So just give F&O a second. Now that we've confirmed the purchase order, let's go ahead and receive against it. So let me just put in that we're going to receive all 10 laptops. There we go. There we go. And we're going to go to receive. And once those goods have been received, once again, you'll see that the folder structure has updated where we now have a link to the receipt within F&O. Now, I've been doing a lot of capturing using drag and drop technology. I did want to show another way to get records into the system or files into the system. If a user has a local scanner, they can scan the document in, or I can browse out on the network to select the file that I want to upload to the receipt in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and select a packing slip. We'll identify the subtype. Now that packing slip will be stored against the receipt so that all appropriate users can see it for years to come without having to do a lot of searching.
Mitch, I hate to interrupt you again, but what you've shown is really powerful stuff, but it also strikes me it's probably more appropriate for lower transaction volumes. What happens when companies get into the hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions on a daily basis? How does Datahaven help them?
Well, Brad, we actually have a powerful workflow and OCR engine that users with higher volumes, or if they have a busy season throughout the year, can take advantage of. So I've gone into the Datahaven workspace and I'm going into the OCR workflow. Now, within OCR workflow, you can see the first queue that we have is pending OCR. Now, this is where documents initially arrive, whether it be a scanned-in document or an email that's come in to a monitored email address. Datahaven can pick that up and bring it directly into our OCR engine. Now, let's open up the OCR engine so people can see what that looks like. Now, the first thing I want to mention is the fact that this may look busy initially. The screen, there's a lot of information that's being presented to users, but as you'll see over the next few minutes, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Now, for today's demonstration, what I've done is I've put together an example of 3 PO-based invoices and 1 non-PO-based invoice that we're going to process in a matter of minutes. And this is something that would probably take a half an hour to an hour for normal users. Now, the first thing that's come in is an invoice that we like to call a perfect match scenario, meaning that Datahaven's OCR engine has performed a 3-way match, an automated 3-way match, indicating that this invoice matches the PO within F&O and that all of the goods have been received. You can see that indicated by the green check in the bottom center portion of your screen. All of the fields are blue, meaning there's a high degree of confidence in the information that the OCR engine picked up. And this can really help organizations that are dealing with an influx of a lot of invoices. Now, Datahaven's actually going to take things a step further by allowing users to be able to post directly from the OCR engine. So anything that's a perfect 3-way match, those can be processed with almost no human intervention. Typically, we see that our customers will have a user view these documents initially, but after a month, they'll be processed automatically. But let's move on to some common exceptions that we see. With Datahaven, the system can be set up to identify things like a non-receipt invoice, meaning that the invoices come in, but the goods have not been received. In this case, we have an invoice, and if you look under the PO match analysis, it says that the invoice matches the PO, but the goods have not been received. Datahaven still allows users to be able to process these type of invoices when they come in. And what will happen is, rather than posting it within F&O, the system will put it into a workflow that we'll see in just a few moments. The next example we have is another common exception we see, and that's where the invoice came in and there was a freight charge on the invoice, but there was no freight charge on the PO. Obviously, we want to highlight that and indicate that to the OCR user. So if we look at the PO match analysis again, it's letting the user know that this invoice does match the PO, the goods have been received, but there's a freight charge. Users of Datahaven can set the system up in a variety of ways. We can either enable this to allow the user to enter in the shipping charge or freight charge directly from this screen, as long as it's within a certain tolerance, or we can actually route it into a workflow for approval. Now let's move on to the final exception that we have. Or I should say the final invoice that we have for today's examples, and that's a non-PO based invoice. With Datahaven, we can eliminate users having to key in the information from a non-PO based invoice. The system has been able to identify the vendor within F&O. So we know that this vendor is an existing vendor within F&O. And we've set up a footprint where it's been able to extract all of the information from this PO. This is going to reduce not only data entry times, but also errors that might occur. Datahaven can be set up to either extract just the header information, or in our example, we're also going to be extracting the line level detail as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and submit this document.
Mitch, before you submit, one exception that we come across quite often, I didn't see you demonstrating that, and that's when we or the company might receive duplicate invoices. They're at risk of paying those invoices multiple times. I think we just ran across one that paid the same invoice 4 times and recently.
Yeah, actually, we're implementing Datahaven for a customer where they've had multiple invoices be paid 3 to 4 times. Well, with Datahaven, the system is constantly monitoring F&O data. So when I submit this, you'll see that Datahaven has thrown up a validation error. And what it's done is it's actually gone ahead and looked at this document and noticed that there is a duplicate invoice for this vendor in the system. It's identified that, and now what will happen is we'll need to make a change in order to process this. And I actually noticed it didn't pick up the vendor zip code, so I just made that change. And we're going to go ahead and give this a unique invoice number value so that we can go ahead and process this. Now, normally I wouldn't be doing that, but since we're in a demo environment, I feel pretty safe. Now we've seen that all documents have been processed. So you were able to see I was able to process 4 invoices in a matter of minutes, a perfect match, 2 exceptions, and a non-PO based invoice. And let's go ahead and export all of these files to F&O, and this will just take 1 moment.
Now, you're doing a lot of these steps manually. Most of these are going to occur programmatically behind the scenes. It's really only that verify screen that any user is looking at. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So obviously today for time, we want to make sure that things are happening in a quick manner. Normally what would happen is behind the scenes, as soon as those documents were processed, they would kick off the export feature automatically. All right, so I'm actually going to go over to F&O. And let's go back into the Datahaven workspace where we can see all of those documents that we just processed, how they went into workflow. The first one, of course, is the PO mismatch. This is where there was the freight charge. If I go into that workflow queue, we can see the invoice that was just processed. It was a PO match, but there was a freight charge mismatch. So this can be routed to the appropriate user to research or approve. And this is a great tool to be able to streamline identifying these exceptions so that your company can take care of any or resolve them to take advantage of any early payment discounts. Same thing if I go into the awaiting receipts. Once again, I've got that PO that invoice we just processed, and we can see the PO receipts have not been posted. So it'll stay in this queue. As soon as the goods have been received in F&O, the system will then take this invoice, run it back through OCR. At that point, it'll be a perfect match and it can be posted automatically. For the perfect match scenario, if I go into the posted pending payment queue, these are all of the invoices that have been processed through OCR that the 3-way match occurred, and the system automatically posted the purchase order and created an invoice journal entry within the system. If I launch the link record and go to the invoice journal, you'll see the invoice that was processed utilizing OCR has been scanned and automatically attached to this record. Now, this is examples of how we've processed all of the all the PO-based invoices. Now let's take a look at what happened to the PO-based invoice. And to do that, I'm going to actually go back into our Datahaven workspace. And let's go into the non-PO queue. For the non-PO based invoice that came into the system, what I wanted to do is show you how those are processed. So once again, I've gone into the Datahaven workspace, and you can see the invoice that arrived just a few moments ago. Now, typically with a non-PO based invoice, what will happen is we want to route that through an approval process. Now, Datahaven can be configured to automate this process and route it based on department and dollar amount, for example, or project. But I also want to show how easy it is to manually set up an approval route for a document that's being processed through Datahaven's workflow engine. So we're going to go ahead and route this non-PO invoice to both myself and to Brad. We're going to route for approval. And I'm going to initiate that approval process. Now, users can approve that file in a number of ways. The first of which, once again, is from within Datahaven's workspace. I'm going to go into a personal queue that's been set up for Mitch Brown. And this is a list of all files that have been assigned to me for approval. And you can see I've got a couple that are a little bit old, so I need to start working on getting those approved. But the one that I just routed that came in a few seconds ago is at the very bottom of the list. And I could actually approve this directly from this screen, but I wanted to go directly to the purchase invoice within Dynamics F&O to highlight the fact that now that this document is in workflow, when I click on it within the Datahaven folder structure, maybe a little bit difficult to see, but at the very bottom, you can see that this is currently in Mitch Brown's workflow. So users can monitor where documents are in the approval process directly from the folder structure. From the folder structure, I can also approve this document directly from the folder structure or from the Datahaven viewer. When I open up the invoice, you can see at the top, I've got an approve or reject option, and I'm going to go ahead and approve this invoice. And once I approve it, if I go back to F&O, I'm going to do a refresh. In a few moments, that is going to be routed into Brad's queue for approval. You can actually see that at the bottom of your screen. And if I go into the notes area within the Datahaven folder structure, you can see we've got a full audit trail of everything that's happened with this document from OCR all the way through being able to, or being approved by myself and be routed to Brad. Now that I've approved this invoice in the system, Brad, it should have sent you an email, I believe. Can you check your email?
I actually got it right here on my phone. So I don't know about anybody else out there, but I'm looking forward to attending some of these sessions actually in person. But when I do that, I'll need to be able to approve things from the road. So I have this email. I have the invoice or the other documents right there in a package in my inbox. And so all I have to do is review those and reply with a simple approve. Make sure I spell it correctly. And that should be all that's required. I don't need to go into the ERP system. I don't need to go into the portal. I can do it directly from my phone, my familiar inbox. Okay, now we'll switch back over to Mitch. And you'll want to clip that out. That's just a notification.
Brad, now that you've approved that invoice, I'm going to go back into the non-PO processing Datahaven workspace. And if I go all the way to the right, you can see approved department invoices ready to post. And there's the invoice that you just processed a minute ago. Once again, we can navigate over to the record where I can see that file along with all other supporting information that relates to this transaction within F&O. Once again, we want to thank everyone for attending today's session. Hopefully you were able to see how Datahaven365 can streamline processes not only for Dynamics F&O, but also for users of CRM, Outlook, Power Apps, as well as Teams. If you'd like more information regarding Datahaven's capabilities, please reach out to the sales team utilizing the contact information that's on screen now, or by stopping by our booth at DynamicsCon.
Well, thank you, Mitch, and thank you, everyone, for attending. If you haven't already put any questions into the chat, now would be the best time to do that. We'll be happy to answer those as time permits. But again, thank you for taking time to catch this demo, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you very much.
Hopefully in person.
Oh, here we go. Live and in person.
Yes.
So hopefully that wasn't too much of a fire hose for everybody to take in. I don't see any questions yet. Saw one question in the chat. So feel free to chime in. We're here ready and eager to answer any of the questions you might have. You know, Mitch, one of the things I noticed is that was going through its paces is that we didn't really show much in the way of any outbound documents. How is that, or is that handled within Datahaven, and how does that sort of fall into the sequence of documents coming in and heading out of an organization?
Well, of course, Datahaven can handle outbound documents as well as inbound, as we showed during the video. We really wanted to focus on that side. But with Datahaven, we can set the system up so that elements such as invoices or purchase orders, order confirmations, those can be sent out either manually by someone, a user initiating the process, or we can set up a workflow so that they automatically are delivered. And one of the nice things about Datahaven, you can create a template for the documents that are going out so that they have a covering email, and also supporting documentation can be attached. For example, we've heard from some of our customers where they want to have the system automatically attach any design documents that may relate to a purchase order. And with all the files that are being sent out, we want to have one central repository. So once again, Datahaven can archive a copy of the outbound file, and it will be stored with all the other content. So
one of the questions, or maybe the question in the chat, relates to the OCR technology. The answer was that we're using a combination of proprietary and one of the major engines out there. We saw, or at least I saw yesterday, I think one of the partners in Australia had put together a very interesting demonstration of how they were using a combination of Microsoft AI, Teams, and some other technologies, including Power Automate, to use some of to create an OCR engine on the front end. Is that something that we can leverage if, for some reason the customer already has it or prefers that for whatever reason?
Of course. I mean, one of the great things about Datahaven is it's very flexible. So if you're already using or leveraging an OCR engine, we can work to take the output of that OCR, the data that is extracted, and bring that into Datahaven. And the nice thing about that is then we can bring those files into our folder structure. And as we mentioned during the session, our folder structures is patented. It's something that's really unique to Datahaven in helping maintain that all files are stored in a consistent manner. Now, of course, we would like for you to use our OCR engine, but if you have one that you want to leverage, we can definitely assist you.
Using OCR sometimes it gets a little bit of a mystique about it. Everybody thinks that they're going to need OCR and they have to have it, and it's the panacea that's going to solve all their problems. I think we know in the real world that's just a small part of what can be done or what should be done in a document management project. But let's say somebody doesn't want to go to the trouble or the expense of an OCR investment. What kind of automation can we build into a document process for a company like that?
Well, once again, Datahaven's a very flexible offering, so we can actually handle, automatic linking based on other information, such as in the subject line of an email that comes in, if it includes a purchase order number or sales order number, we can grab that and attach it to the appropriate record within F&O. We can also have the ability to, once that file is attached, initiate a workflow. Another common example that we see is utilizing barcodes. So things such as proof of delivery documents, when they come in, if there's a barcode identifier on it, we'll be able to pick that information up or pick that barcode and see what file it attaches to and automatically link it. So there are a variety of offerings. Really, the best thing to do is, to have a conversation with your partner, a member of the Datahaven team, where we can go through, learn more about your business and what you're trying to accomplish, and then we can make the appropriate recommendation as to what's going to be the best option. Sometimes it'll be OCR, sometimes we can look at other options.
Apparently, you're doing a very good job of addressing all of my questions, because I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So I'll just keep asking, because I tend to ask.
We did have one that came in asking about where the data is stored.
Glad you saw that. I had not scrolled down.
Well, just want to make sure we're getting to everyone's questions. Well, to answer that is, with Datahaven, we do have options for being able to store documents either on premise, and that would be using a SQL server to store the documents. And another option is we have a cloud-based offering where we can actually host the database for you. It is stored in Azure. So for those customers out there that are wanting to go fully into the cloud, Datahaven has options for you.
And just to be clear, we're not saving any of this in the Dynamics database. This is all being saved outside, and we have some proprietary linking that we've created. It's actually patented, that lets us do a lot of the automated naming and the linking, not just between documents in a folder structure, but those documents and the transactions that it might relate to. So you can go from quote to order to invoice and see all the various documents that might have come in during that process. So I know Dynamics 365 has some existing workflow capabilities in there, and we have the ability to connect into Power Automate. So it seems like there's a couple of choices there. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how we look at things from a document-centric standpoint? Because I know a lot of the data-centric workflows, if you will, are covered by a variety of tools, but we can really leverage that with a document-centric workflow engine that we bring in. Can you talk a little bit to that?
So with Datahaven, as Brad mentioned, we can tie into the D365 workflow. So if you want to use that for, let's say, an invoice approval process, we're going to be able to back that up with the supporting documentation. But with Datahaven, there are a variety of workflows that we can create within the system. We've had document workflows around, credit application approvals. We've had workflows where people have, there was one organization, it was a government agency, and they wanted to set Datahaven up so that when they had a purchase requisition, before they could convert that to a quote and take that requisition and create it and turn it into a purchase order, they needed to ensure that they had 3 vendor quotes attached to the requisition. And that's another example as to how Datahaven workflow engines can be used. One, because I know you mentioned Power Automate, we just worked with a customer that was looking to create a chatbot using that interface with Datahaven, because they had their customers wanting to be able to utilize this chatbot to achieve proof of deliveries and copies of their invoices. It was something that the customer service team, it was eating up a lot of their time. So with Datahaven, they were able to interface with the chatbot where users can go into the chatbot, request an invoice. The chatbot will retrieve the information from the Datahaven repository and email it out to the customer that we have listed within the F&O system. And this is all done without the end user needing to access F&O at all.
So I think we've covered almost everything when it comes to the Power Platform. We didn't think we were going to have time, so we sort of excluded it from our demo, but we've not talked about Power Apps. I know Power Apps have really taken hold in the community, does a great job of being able to really focus in on some value-added functionality without bringing the added expense and complexity of the ERP or the CRM solution. Can you talk a little bit about how we can use Power Apps or use Datahaven embedded within those Power Apps?
So in terms of with Datahaven's interfacing in Power Apps, there's the example that I just mentioned. We can also use Power Apps to distribute the files. Excuse me.
The one you mentioned, I think, was Power Virtual Agent as opposed to a Power App itself, which has a different visual.
I'm not sure. Did you have something in mind?
Just the embedded folder structure within the Power App, as opposed to Power Virtual Agent, where it's serving up, a document that's a specific query, as opposed to allowing somebody to look at a folder structure within a Power App that they might otherwise see in the ERP or CRM solution.
Well, I mean, that's with Datahaven. One of our goals is to provide users with the ability to access documents, from the platform or application of their choice. And we're extending that through Power Apps. We're also extending it, as we showed during today's demonstration. We highlight it with our Teams integration. We're also actually allowing users to be able to search for documents through Outlook. So one of the goals of Datahaven is to really allow users to consume information from the platform of their choice, and really excited to what we're going to be able to do with Power Apps moving forward. And
we talked a lot about the AP process and automating some of that. Can we talk a little bit on the sales side, maybe some of the sales order? A lot of the larger companies out there, they leverage EDI, but there's a point at which EDI becomes untenable. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the way we can help automate some of those processes where maybe a sales order entry is something that's really bogging an organization down, short of adopting a full-blown EDI?
Of course. During the session today, we highlighted how Datahaven can take a non-PO invoice and extract the information and create the invoice voucher within F&O. Well, we can also do that with customer POs. So when POs come in, be able to extract the information off the PO and enter that in as a sales order with no having a user have to rekey the information. And if it's over a certain dollar amount, we can also have a workflow tied into that where it'll then automatically take that sales order and put it through an approval workflow. Also, we can store all documents that relate to the sales transaction. So anything from the customer PO, requisitions, proof of delivery documents, and also give users, and I think we touched on this during the demonstration, but the ability to see any supporting files that are stored against an item that's on that sales order. And once again, they'll be able to not only see documents that are stored within F&O, but we also can see documents that are stored against the account within CRM, against the customer record within F&O, and all of this information can be available either through a Power App or through Teams.
All right, well, that's great. Unless you have anything you want to throw in here toward the end, I kind of feel like we're the last act and we're only delaying somebody from their cocktail hour. So I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank DynamicsCon for the opportunity to present here. This has been a fantastic event for us. Really looking forward to the next event, which hopefully I believe is occurring again in the fall, obviously again next spring. So hope everyone felt like they got their money's worth, considering it was free, which is great. Mitch, you got anything else you want to throw in here before we sign off?
Just want to thank everyone for attending our session. And if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Great. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, everyone. And we will hopefully see you soon in person at an event in hopefully a few months.
Yes.
Thank you.